Hello, my name is Velina Chakarova, and I'm geopolitical strategist and founder of FACE. Today, I would like to talk about China-Russia relations. We saw a very interesting summit between the Russian President Putin and the Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing, and obviously this was the first international visit of the Russian president following his inauguration. So in the first part of the video, I will touch upon some of the most interesting details of this meeting from my personal point of view. In the second part, I will also give you my assessment regarding this relationship, where it's headed and what it means for the international relations. Now, first and foremost, it's important to know that the two leaders have known each other and have been interacting with each other since Xi Jinping came to power in 2013, and since then they have met for more than 40 times, which points to a very personal relationship. Meanwhile, we saw a lot of gestures, a lot of body language during the last 2 days pointing to exactly that. There is a personal level of trust and sympathy between them, and obviously this is a significant factor. But beyond that, since the last more than 2 years, we also have a few important elements that I would like to discuss with you, since China has been the key provider for Russia in terms of trade and economic ties, as well as dual use and technological transfer following the launch of the full-scale war of Russia against Ukraine on the 24th of February 2022. And here, once again, of course, the international community was carefully watching what the signals are in terms of future Chinese support for Russia, as well as regarding the let's say, last important meetings the Chinese president had with European leaders, as well as the US president, pointing, of course, to the other direction, namely that the West was trying to convince China to stop aiding Russia in this war. And the language, as well as the statements, we have already some official statements, some documents have been also signed and already posted online. However, it is quite clear that the Chinese comprehensive support for Russia will continue, and that China, obviously, even though that it is announcing its nuclear so to say, stance in the ongoing war, is practically on the side of Russia. This is relevant to the point that there was a statement where the Chinese president made it very clear that China would support a peace conference or any kind of peaceful negotiations which are recognized by both Russia and Ukraine. And that gives you already an idea about the upcoming peace conference in Switzerland next week, where neither China nor other relevant states from the global south, for instance India, will be present, which of course gives indirectly a strong boost to the Russian position. Now, the Russian president went to China with the clear goal and the announced plans to deepen the military, the trade and economic ties with China, reflecting the strategic partnership, which is mainly aimed at challenging the US-led global order, as well as the American allies and partners around the globe. Now, next to the close personal relationship between the two presidents I outlined very shortly for you, and all of the signals that we saw, we have to look at the trade and the economic side of this relationship. In 2023, the bilateral trade between Russia and China reached another milestone of more than 200 billion US dollars, with indications that dual use technology, which is obviously supporting Russia's war efforts, is increasingly being traded. And once again, a new goal was announced. This time, the plan is to reach the milestone of 300 billion US dollars. Now, if we compare this with the bilateral trade between China and the United States on the one hand, or China and the European Union on the other, we clearly see a big discrepancy here, especially in the case of the trade between the European Union and China, which is still amounting to almost 800 billion US dollar. There is a clear incentive on behalf of Beijing to keep good and stable relationship with Europe, as well as with the West, especially given the announcement and the launch of new tariffs by Washington, worth of more than 18 billion US dollars. But the reality is that the trade and the economic ties are accelerating with a much faster speed than originally anticipated prior to the launch of the Russian war against Ukraine. So obviously this new milestone, and given the new names and representatives of Putin's cabinet, where we have an economist and a technocrat as a new defense minister. This is Andrei Belousov, who is going to manage the war economy of Russia. But we have also some other interesting names there. The expectation is that this trade relationship is going to further increase, and this will have ramifications for not just the bilateral relationship in a positive way, but also for global and regional relations with third countries. Why? Because one of the key features, and it was mentioned during the meetings between the Chinese and the Russian counterparts, is also to find mechanisms how to trade efficiently in national currencies. Obviously, here the goal is to bypass or counter Western sanctions, but also to create a credible counterweight to the very strong and still widely globally traded US dollar. So the example given by the Russian president that Russia and China already managed to have let's say, to structure their trade into national currencies, amounting to, meanwhile, 90% in yuan and the Russian ruble, is a model that is going to be discussed with other international partners. For instance, when it comes to regional organizations such as BRICS Plus or the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Coming to global and regional governance, this was, of course, another major topic being discussed between them. And here, the confirmation on behalf of the Chinese President Xi Jinping that he's going to attend the next BRICS Plus summit, which is to take place in Kazan in Russia, is a clear and strong signal towards, first and foremost, the personal engagement, second, China's involvement in these important regional formations, and third, that there is also a coordination between Russia and China when it comes to agenda, shared interests, and also the relations with the rest of the countries that are members or associated partners. Here, when it comes to BRICS Plus, the idea and the short-term goal is to facilitate this organization as the next most powerful commodities organization. And here it's not only about fossil fuels such as oil and gas, but also it is increasingly about food commodities, where Russia is going to play a significant role on the global markets, not only as the biggest wheat exporter in the world, but also in general, if we take a look at the reshuffles in Moscow, the growing focus on ecological agricultural topics, as well as the topic of energy diversification, we clearly see that sectors away from oil and gas will be also heavily promoted. And here we see obviously the goal of Russia to become a significant, if not one of the biggest agricultural powerhouses in the world. Whereas in China, Russia sees the biggest potential customer, as we know that China is also world's leading commodities importer. Now, we saw also a very interesting decision by the Russian president, which is also quite logical to take the new defense minister Belousov on this trip, whereas the former defense minister Shoigu was also present to introduce his new colleague to the Chinese counterparts and to make sure that there is a comprehensive continuum, specifically in the defense in the military technological sectors, where obviously there will be more coordination. And some analysts started pointing to the fact that some aspects of the military technology China could get from Russia could be a game changer for the PLA or the PLN. This is, of course, a comment that we should await to manifest, but for the moment, we do not know for sure the level of interoperability between China and Russia. What we know based on the announcements is that they want to deepen the military cooperation. There were no specified areas, but we assume that one particular area will be the number and the scope of military drills that they will organize in specific regions, for instance, in the Sea of Japan or in the Gulf of Oman, and so on and so forth. So here, once again, we see a clear signals towards more coordination, towards bigger scope of initiatives and actions. And all of these, if we take into account also fields such as space collaboration, some ideas were announced also with regards to joint projects, for instance, early warning systems or aircraft. So obviously this is going to be further deepened and build up. Now, from what we've seen and based on the announcements so far, it is a relationship that is quite personal, at the same time strategically oriented when it comes to economic, financial, commodities manners and topics and issues, and as I already said, equally also space and military. But let me now move to the second part, where I would like to also outline some strategic issues. Now, a lot of people have been asking about this term that I've coined in 2015, the term of the DragonBear, what this DragonBear really means. And I would like to use the occasion to also explain what the DragonBear is and what it really means for the global affairs. Now, the DragonBear is not a strategic alliance or any kind of strategic, relationship the way Western analysts understand it. It is a comprehensive modus vivendi of systemic coordination in various strategic areas. Now, if we consider the emerging power dynamics, Russia is currently positioning itself as a significant free rider in the global power struggle between two systemic rivals, namely United States and China. And Moscow is utilizing hard power to enhance bargaining leverage and expand its influence in various geographic regions, particularly right now in Eastern Europe with the ongoing war on Ukraine. What are in fact the strategic objectives of this war? Well, it serves multiple purposes next to the goal of the complete subjugation of Ukraine. This is still the maximum goal on behalf of Russia. And of course, we could discuss whether Russia realistically could achieve this goal or not, but this is not the topic of this video. Here we would like to put these strategic objectives into a broader geopolitical context. And in fact, one of the other key goals of Russia with this war is to disrupt, and if it's possible, to even destroy the current European security architecture. Now, why is this relevant for the relationship with China? It is relevant because it would reinforce Russia's status as a great power in this newly emerging Cold War between China and United States. But it is even more relevant because Russia has aligned with China prior to the decision to start this full-scale war against Ukraine. At the same time, by launching a full-scale war against Ukraine, Russia has triggered and accelerated the manifestation of this Cold War, pressuring China to align with Russia by deciding to comprehensively supporting the Russian side with all possible means. Obviously, Russia and China aim to reshape the global order amidst the fourth industrial revolution. And we know for a fact, based on our observations from the previous industrial revolutions, that the winner takes all. Here, what is meant is that the great power or the global power, or if you like, the alliance of powers that is going to emerge victorious from the fourth industrial revolution is going to be able to also impose the new rules of the game in terms of the future global governance. Here, we also need to consider geopolitical ambitions. On behalf of Russia, the goal is to expand its sphere of influence in Europe with China's backing, and vice versa. We've seen this kind of interesting modus in particular European countries where both China and Russia were seeking significant political, economic, trade-related leverage. Think of the most recent visit of the Chinese president Xi Jinping to Europe, including countries like Hungary and Serbia, which already have a very, very strong Russian leverage. But as I already mentioned, in the case of Russia, one of the key geopolitical ambitions is also to shape the future of the European security order, if possible, to destroy the the existent one from the last 30 years following the collapse of the Soviet Union, and to create a new security order on the old continent. The Chinese goals are to establish a strategic sphere of influence, including complete subjugation of Taiwan. Now, I do not share the view of many military analysts pointing to a possible military attack on Taiwan up until 2027. In fact, I consider this subjugation to happen in a broader context via political, economic, and social factors, and it is what I describe as a death by thousand cuts approach that China is going to apply to Taiwan. Now, beyond this goal, there is also the goal to control the South China Sea and East China Sea. So it's quite of a hybrid approach by China, including maritime and terrestrial domains. Here, some parts of the Indian Oceans are also included, and jointly with Russia, both want to prevent foreign powers from dominating Eurasia. Now, last but not least, and this was made clear during the meetings between the Russian President Putin and the Chinese President Xi Jinping, is the goal of developing a new Arctic maritime route, which will be shorter as compared to the US-controlled Indo-Pacific maritime route, the one that is facing big issues right now with the crisis in the Red Sea. But obviously, it's not just about trade or shipping of commodities. Following the climate change related developments, which will enable this Arctic maritime route to be built much earlier than originally anticipated. Here it is also about the militarization of the Arctic, and practically Russia is the entry ticket for China to the Arctic, because China itself is not an Arctic nation. Now let's take a look also at the global governance and economic strategies. Here the goal is very clear. Both seek to coordinate their positions and collaborate in order to undermine the US-led global governance. That happens on the one hand through the penetration of international organizations, which are practically challenging the US influence. Think of the UN Security Council, but think also of other relevant international organizations. At the same time, another strategy is to promote alternative global governance frameworks. For instance, I mentioned already the BRICS Plus, but also the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where the West is isolated and is not taking part. When it comes to economic trade and commodities collaboration, here the idea is to increase the bilateral trade using national currencies. I already mentioned the trade volume between China and Russia, which is currently traded in national currencies of amounting to 90%. And here, of course, they will be working on specific mechanisms within the BRICS Plus format to come up with facilitation systems, how to bypass Western sanctions, but also reduce reliance on the US dollar globally. The two countries want to collaborate on advanced technologies, AI, facial recognition, internet, media, telecommunications, such as 5G, quantum computing, space technologies, and they want to lead the advancement in technologies which are relevant for the fourth industrial revolution. So here it is really about winning, so not just riding the wave of the fourth industrial revolution, but really winning it for the sake of shaping new global orders, norms, rules, and standards. Moving to regional influence and collaboration, the two want to establish zones of influence in other parts of the world, be it Latin America, Africa, West, Central, and Southeast Asia. Whereas Russia can provide diplomatic and security networks and expertise in various, areas of the commodities or the fossil fuels, mining issues. Whereas China, on the other hand, can supply liquidity and ensure the infrastructure development. These zones are emerging in various parts of the world, as the most middle powers are currently oscillating between the United States, China, and Russia, while avoiding taking sides. Think of the most powerful example, which is India, which is currently the most relevant geopolitical actor next to these three, which is trying to act as a bridge builder between these two emerging powerful geopolitical blocs, while taking the best from both worlds. So we should focus increasingly also on formats such as BRICS Plus, because this could be the next energy and food commodities powerhouse in the international relations. Do not forget military and space collaboration. The warfare will have not 3 but 4 dimensions in the 24th century, with space coming back and cyber obviously becoming the 4th dimension. So here they will explore joint military, technological and space initiatives and technological transfer. When it comes to dual use, they will work on joint projects, will develop new space station, and will work on missions with third countries using the new technologies such as AI, quantum, and other relevant technologies, for instance, cyber technologies in the defense sector. So cyber defense and space are going to be increasingly relevant also for both the military and civilian dimension of the equation. Here, of course, I'm making this remark specifically for investors. What would be the U.S. strategic concerns? Well, a strategic partnership between China and Russia, even if it is transactional, even if it is asymmetrical in a sense because of the of China's upper hand, will pose a significant threat to the United States, creating a two-front scenario and overstretching the U.S. Power projection. The DragonBear's primary objective will remain the same as it has been since the last 10 years, namely to counterbalance American global power projection and US influence in international politics, in international and regional organizations, as well as in relations with third countries. Now that we know that the US will likely shift its focus towards the Indo-Pacific, and that would mean a slow but sure withdrawal from the old continent, driven by China's rise in East Asia. We should also consider the reality in the case of Russia's victory in the war against Ukraine, which would mean quite of a big portfolio in terms of economy, technology, and defense for the European partners, where a lot of investments will have to be made. What about the geopolitical risks and dependencies? Both Russia and China aim to avoid sanctions. In the case of China, it's more about secondary sanctions, next to the problems and the challenges stemming from the bilateral relationship with the United States based on the mutual decoupling that's going on between these two systemic rivals. China views a potential partnership between Russia and the US as, let's say, the worst case scenario. Think of Nixon-Kissinger approach to Russia, similarly to what the US did to China in the 70s. So this kind of worst case scenario is what China wants to prevent by all means via a geopolitical and geoeconomic rapprochement with Moscow. Russia will always oppose a Pax Sinica in Eurasia and will always resist Chinese domination in regions that are strategically important to Moscow, such as the areas of this vertical axis of expansion from the Arctic via Eurasia, including Eastern Europe, the Black Sea, the Eastern Mediterranean Sea, also South Caucasus, and now the epicenter of Russian dominance in Eastern Europe. And of course, when I say Eurasia, it's more about Central Asia. So Pax Sinica, or emergence of a second superpower on behalf of China, and the way how China will, behave geopolitically in these specific regions will also give us some clues about how transactional this relationship is and what kind of challenges it may face in the long term. And last but not least, when it comes to the critical uncertainties, The unpredictable trajectory of Russia's war against Ukraine may force Putin to align Russia more closely with China's geopolitical and geoeconomic interests, increasing the dependencies I would like to say interdependencies within the DragonBear modus vivendi in the long term. So thank you very much for listening, and do send me your comments, feedback, questions, either on my webpage. You can find me on the webpage of Face for a Conscious Experience, or send me a message on Twitter, where you can find me on V Chakarova. Thank you very much.